What is up, everyone? We have another UFC Fight Night Apex card to break down from a Draftkings DFS perspective. This week's card being headlined by Chris Curtis versus Brendan Allen 2, a rematch from a couple years ago where Chris Curtis did find a knockout on Brendan Allen. We got 12 fights, a mix of some UFC debuts, some low-level fights, the typical Apex card. Nothing special. We got one more Apex card to break down until we get to next week, which is the huge one, UFC 300. And I cannot wait because I'm getting tired of these fight night cards, I'll be honest, with just the shenanigans that have been going on the past few weeks. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the first fight. We'll start from the top, work our way towards the middle. We got Walter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother, taking on Lucas Brzeski. 6.8K for Lucas Brzeski and 9.4K for Walter Walker. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Walter Walker, he does have takedowns. So that is something that helps him out. And at 9.4K on a slate, where just glancing, we have a lot of fights heavily expected to go the distance. I do believe that if Walter Walker has minus 150, somewhere around there, he's going to be a good play on a slate like this. So let's take a look. Minus 140, minus 120 or so without the VIG. With the takedowns, yeah, I think it's a good play. Lucas Brzeski, plus 500. He's only 6.8K. He's plus 220 to win, which in and of itself is not horrible for a 6.8K fighter. But it's not a good play. I mean, it's MME only for me. I don't think anything really sticks out, and he's not exactly a high output guy in his wins. So Walker pass for that fight. Next up, we got Melissa Mullens versus Nora Cornolle. We don't have an ITD line for this fight yet, but we have an over 2.5 rounds, heavily favored, which means that none of these fighters should have an ITD line worth mentioning. Mullens does have a large grappling edge in this fight, which does worry me because even if she has a bad ITD line, I've just been burned too many times fading these low-level women's MMA fights where one fighter has a massive grappling edge. They get takedowns and get 200 million strikes on top, never find a finish, and put up 150. Like I've just seen it happen too many times. So I'm going to put Mullens as a French play just because of that. But this fight doesn't look good on paper. I'll just say that. And then Nora Cornolle, Mullens I don't imagine will be high owned. So it's really hard to make a case for Nora Cornolle, honestly, unless you think this line is off or something. So I think Cornolle's a fade. Next up, we have Alex Morono versus Court McGee. Court McGee, 40 years old, coming off 2 KO losses. Alex Morono, you're I would say run-of-the-mill UFC fighter. Good everywhere, not great anywhere. He has sneaky jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't really use it. We got Alex Morono at minus 300, 9.2K. It's fine. I'd like to see somewhere around minus 110, hopefully, for him. He's plus 130 or so. I think he's fine. With him, the problem is I believe a lot of his upside comes from his finishes. He doesn't really have great decision upside, but at the same time, he's had fights where he's had pretty high volume, But even then, that's just, high striking volume on DraftKings doesn't really do it. I think it's fine. Court McGee on the other side of it, 7K. He's not winning all that often. His ITD line is non-existent. There is an argument to be made that if he wins this fight, it's going to come via the wrestling. I think that's a valid argument. It's just he's not winning all that often, man. I'll call it a fade for now, but I'm really interested to see what ownership is like because he's someone that could have upside in a win if he gets the wrestling going. So, but yeah, for now it's Morono or pass. Ignacio Bahamondes, Christian Giagos. Ignacio Bahamondes, let's see him. Minus 330, healthy money line, and minus 110. He's relatively high volume. He's a pure striker, but he has some sub upside. He has really long arms. You can find guillotines and stuff like that pretty easily. Minus 150. What is he in round 1? I'll call it a good play just because he seems like more of a late finisher type of guy. And yeah, that round 1 line is not strong at all. But the overall ITD line plus the volume, it makes it a good play, no doubt. Giagos plus 550. But it's like, once again, could you argue that when he wins this fight, it comes via the takedowns? I think you could. I think once again, he's just not winning that often. But this time, unlike the Morono fight, Bahamondes should be high owned with these metrics. So I suppose there's more of a case for Giagos just because of an ownership perspective. We'll have to wait until Friday to talk about it more. But for now, it's Bahamondes surpass. Charlie Campbell, Trevor Peek. So this is the fight on this card that's going to be the most obvious one. I think it's going to get ownership. It's going to be in all the sim optimals, all that stuff. It just has to show up on a card like this where you have, a ton of fights heavily favored to go to a decision, and you have the only fight that has an under 1.5 round line juiced, and you have Trevor Peek, who comes out every fight and fights like a madman, and Charlie Campbell, who can get knocked out. It has all the tellings of a really strong DFS fight, good ITD line, all that stuff. I think it's an elite fight to target on both sides, especially Trevor Peek. 7.2K. It's really hard to see the variations where he wins, and it's not optimal. So both sides are elite targets. Trevor Peek especially. There's a chance Charlie Campbell can win and not be optimal, but I think this fight's great. Moving on. We have main event, Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis. A weird main event for DFS. A 2.5 round line. So what do you make of it? Do you think the fight goes all 5? Do you think it finishes early, in the middle? You can make a case for any range of outcomes, I think. I think you could. And I think, by definition, Chris Curtis would have to be the better side just because the pricing is 7.3K. He's the underdog. It's going to be a lot easier for him to be optimal if he wins, obviously. He has some knockout upside. Brendan Allen has some submission upside if he does get to the mat, but it's going to be hard for him to get takedowns, I think. You could argue any which way about this fight. Let's see the metrics. Chris Curtis, low 7K. Brendan Allen, 8.9K. Brendan Allen, about a pick'em ITD line. I guess it's fine. And then Chris Curtis, plus 300. This fight just seems fine. Yeah, I don't look at it and think, oh, this thing has to go off. I really don't. I think it could be boring. It could go off 5. It could even be low volume. Let's see what they have. Yeah, I mean, if this fight goes to a decision and Brendan Allen is just point fighting, just trying to stay away from the power of Chris Curtis, you could see an abysmal score at 8.9K. But because of the range of outcomes, the variation where he wins it with a takedown and submission early, I think you just have to play both sides reluctantly. But this is one of those fights I will say, most main events, it's easy. This fight's going to go off regardless. This fight, I do have some concern. But I still have to play it, which is the annoying part. But it is what it is. Okay. Gene Matsumoto, Dan Argueta. Dan Argueta is a great play. He's a great play. We know that what he's going to do, he's going to come forward, shoot takedowns, heavy pressure, heavy pace. When he wins, he's going to score well. And he's also very reasonable. You're not taking a shot at one of these Giagos or McGee's who are 3-1 dogs. He's plus 140 with a very good win condition. I think it's a great play. I don't even really care about his ITD line. It's not good, but I don't really care. Gene Matsumoto on the other side, 8.8K plus 350. Yeah, I think it's I got out of pass. Pretty easy breakdown for me. Alex Hernandez, Damon Jackson, 8.7K plus 130 or so for Alex Hernandez. He's minus 190. Yeah, also with Gene, he has negative. Yeah, he has negative line value as well at 8.8K. So he seems like a very weak play to me. Alex Hernandez 8.7K plus 130 or so. Minus 110. I think that's a good play. And Damon Jackson plus 400. The thing is with him, and we're seeing like a theme of this slate is we have a lot of underdogs with very solid wrestling based win conditions. Dan Argueta, he likes to get not Dan Argueta. Damon Jackson likes to get takedowns and also control time. He loves his control, which means that if he wins, I think he can score well. So I think Damon Jackson is a fine play on the other side of this fight. And you also add on the fact that he's a reasonable underdog as well. It makes it easier to play it. Norma Dumont versus Randamie. This fight's probably a dud. Let's take a look. Over 2.5 round line, heavily juiced. No ITD lines, what I expected. Does Norma Dumont have a ton of takedown upside? 1.5. This fight just seems like a pass, so I'll leave it at that. Dylan Budka versus Cesar Almeida. Another one of these fights that's just a very win condition binary fight. If Budka wins, it's going to be through wrestling. And Almeida's a monster kickboxer. His goal is going to be to keep the fight on the feet and win that way. Whoever implements their game plan is going to win. But Cesar Almeida doesn't really have to score well when he wins because he's a pure striker. So we're really going to need a good ITD line for Cesar Almeida. Let's see his price. 7.7K plus 200 plus 230 maybe. It's plus 330. Yeah, that's really not good. And then Budka plus 260, but once again, that's not amazing for 8.5K, but his win condition is through the wrestling. I don't know exactly, how it looks. Could it be 10 mat return takedowns? Could it be just lay and pray? I don't really know. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and just call it a good play for now until we really get a better gauge on his exact grappling style in the UFC. Moving on, Pierre Rodriguez versus Calvillo. Another fight I don't think will look all that great. Closely lined fight. Pricing makes sense. And just two more non-existent ITD lines. I think it's a pass. Morgan Charriere versus Chepe Mariscal. 8.3K and 7.9K. There it is. Okay, so Morgan Charriere, he's relatively low volume. I believe that his ceiling is really going to come from his finishes rather than his decision wins. On the other hand, we have Chepe, who does have high pace, does have wrestling upside. So I think he has more outs to scoring well. Nonetheless, pick 'em fight. I'm going to want to see around plus 250 for each guy. Charriere, yeah, he's fine. I think Charriere is fine. And then on the other side, we have Chepe Mariscal. Wow, non-existent ITD line. He has wrestling, though. 7.9K. I was hoping it was better. I didn't think it would be hard to play Chepe. But I guess I'll call him a French play for now. I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest. And that's it. And I think I believe I just saw Victor Hugo got a replacement fight. Oh, okay, so he's minus 180 at 8.2K. That's not horrible. It's really not horrible. Like, yes, he'll get ownership. He has a bit of line value at 8.2K, but it could be worse. He could have gotten, some regional seed guy and been a minus 600 favorite and would have been 60% owned. But that didn't happen, so that's fine. Well, I guess Victor Hugo's a good play just for the line value, and then we'll check out his opponent, on Saturday when all these ITD lines come out. Okay, so let's go through it again. Walter Walker, I think, is a good play. Mullens, I think, is a fringe MME play just for that ceiling range of outcome that could take place. Morono, fine. Yeah, he's fine. Bahamondes, I think, is a good play. Charlie Campbell, elite fight to target. Brennan Allen is a good play. Matsumoto's a fade. Alex Hernandez is a good play. Dumont's a fade. Budka's a good play. Pierre Rodriguez, fade. Charriere, good play, I guess. Or did I say fine? Yeah, I think it's fine just because I really only see him getting to his ceiling with a finish. Victor Hugo's a good play. Chape's a fringe play. Kind of undecided on him, to be honest. Calvillo's a fade. Almeida's a fade. Randamie's a fade. Damon Jackson's a fine play. Argueta's a good play. Chris Curtis is a good play. Peak is an elite play. Giagos, McGee, all these guys I'm pretty much undecided on, but I guess they're fades for now. Okay, so that's going to do it. Hope that helps out. We'll talk more about it on Saturday once we have ownership and all of that stuff figured out. And you know what? At the end of this, we make a lineup for the MME build on Saturday, so we might as well try to make just a good single entry / 3 max type of build for this video. So let's go ahead and do Charlie Campbell, Alex Hernandez, Chris Curtis, Dan Argueta, Budka, and Ignacio. I guess there's a lineup with what I believe is all the good plays. So, yeah, that'll do it. Hope this helps a bit. And I will see you guys on the Saturday live stream.